Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Monday. The storm has finally stopped. The snow, at least here in DC, but it sounds like almost 1 million people are without power this morning, guys. 800,000. Thankfully, we are not one of them.
The
What'd
ice
y'all do
now.
this weekend? Did you shovel? Did you go sledding?
I walk the dog, and the beauty of living in the city is the sidewalks are cleared. You're not responsible for it. And Central Park was gorgeous. I mean, it was cool to see the city so quiet and kind of white, covered
I
in
figured
snow.
Mondami would have had all the rich white people do it. That's not a thing?
That's a good one, Sean.
Yeah,
I went
figured
sledding with my daughter.
There were a lot of doormen out there, Sean, just to make you proud. Yep.
Finally got to try out the sled that Santa brought Skyla a few weeks ago. So that was good.
Yeah, I got to go shoveling in. I'm telling you, once you get over 50, shoveling takes on a whole new physical aspect that I wasn't fully. I mean, every year we don't get as much snow anymore down here in Virginia, so it's not like you keep up the way you did. And after like 6 shovels, I was like, oh, and my back hurts. I mean, now I get it. But 2 big wins this weekend, by the way. On Saturday, Navy crushed Army in basketball at Navy. It was awesome. And then last night, the game that all of America was excited for, the New England Patriots returning to the Super Bowl under the tutelage and leadership of Mike Vrabel and Drake May. I mean, I know America is excited for the Super Bowl. So am I.
When is the Super Bowl?
2 weeks from yesterday.
2 weeks from yesterday.
In San Francisco.
Okay.
Or Santa
I'm going to
Clara,
attempt to watch this year just so I can act like I know something on this show.
Just be with the Patriots.
There you go. So obviously a lot of people inside this weekend can't go out and, walk around or do anything really because of the snow. And this sort of just makes what happened with Alex Preddy in Minnesota this weekend all the more problematic for the White House. This morning, they're facing down perhaps the biggest PR crisis they've had for all of Trump 2.0, which is sort of what I wrote in my Substack this weekend. You have Democrats who are freaking out, Democrats who are outraged, Republicans who are freaking out about the political blowback. And it feels like the president this morning is going to have to make a decision. Does he double down or does he pull out in some way? So that's the first of today's 5. We will be talking about that today, what's going on behind the scenes. We'll also talk about a potential shutdown at the end of the week. Democrats now drawing a hard line on funding for ICE and for DHS writ large. How do they handle this? Do they want anything? Are they just sort of pandering to the political moment here? I'm curious what Dan thinks about this and if there's a way to get out of it. We'll talk about my conversation with the president Saturday morning. This was before the shooting occurred. He and I talked a little bit about China and Canada and new threats to slap the president with, slap Canada with 200% tariffs. We'll talk about J.D. Vance's latest headaches, including a tiff he had with Laura Loomer, Ted Cruz talking trash about him behind his back to donors privately. And then we'll also discuss Media Monday and our takes on some of the coverage over the weekend. Before we do that, let's just sort of jump in on the day book here. So the big focus will obviously remain on Minnesota. There's going to be 2 core hearings today. One, a judge considering a judge considering the state suing to end the ICE operation. So basically, they're trying to get the judge to rule soon about whether the Fed has infringed on state sovereignty, infringed on the Constitution in some way with these operations in the state. They're trying to push them out. The other one is a question of whether the Trump administration has to preserve evidence stemming from what happened to Alex Preddy over the weekend. This is a lawsuit brought by local law enforcement. And the judge said over the weekend that they do have to preserve this evidence. But today we'll actually hear from not only the judge, we'll hear from the administration about, how they're sort of handling this investigation.
The first one to me is fascinating. Just real quick, I'll just say the supremacy clause. If any judge tries to undermine the supremacy clause of the United States, it's going to be overturned in about 5 seconds. You just can't, a state can't tell the federal government what to do. It's just not.
To get out.
The law is clear on this.
Here in Washington, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is going to hold a press briefing. So that's she'll be going right right into the eye of the storm on that. The president at 1 p.m. is going to be meeting with Air Force Secretary in the Oval Office. He's also got a policy meeting at 2:30, another at 3, and then he has a radio interview at 4:30. It'll be interesting to see if he brings in the media. He hasn't actually said a lot about Minnesota beyond what he said when Josh Dossey from the Wall Street Journal called him last night and talked to him a little bit. It was sort of the most candid we've seen him be about what happened so far. He just hasn't said much. Sean, does that surprise you?
Wait, I have a question. Did the Journal call him, or I thought he called the Journal, as in let me make news intentionally?
Interesting. I didn't get that impression.
I think Trump
but I could
picked
have
the phone
missed
up.
something.
It's Sunday night. He needed to get some fresh content.
Why? I'm interested, Dan. Like, I'm with Rachel on this. I didn't see it that way, but what was it that gave you that tell?
I thought the Journal story said Donald Trump called the reporter.
We'll have to pull that up.
Yep.
Okay, but first we get to that. Let's we gotta
and apparently too, Donald Trump just put out a Truth Social.
Yeah, breaking.
I am sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight. He has not been involved in that area, but knows and likes many of the people there. Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me. Separately, a major investigation is going on with respect to the massive $20 billion plus welfare fraud that has taken place in Minnesota and is at least partially responsible for the violent organized protests going on in the streets. Additionally, the DOJ and Congress are looking at, quote, Congresswoman, close quote, Ilhan Omar, who left Somalia with nothing and is now reportedly worth more than $44 million. Time will tell all. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT.
I mean, look, he's like clearly firing back at Dems when it comes to sanctuary cities. He sent a Truth Social about that, saying that they're going to end them. Democrats need to cooperate with the Fed in terms of getting undocumented immigrants out of this country. But you don't see him reflecting the same sort of tone that some top administration officials were taking on Saturday. He's not calling. Go ahead.
Let me just be clear. Yeah. This is a massive, massive rebuke to Kristi Home. Like it is a well-known not secret. It's well known that Tom Homan and Kristi Noem have gone to loggerheads, right? Yeah. The idea that he is saying, I'm sending Tom Homan, read the second line. He's not been involved in this area. This is basically saying, I'm sending the adults in. I'm sending.
Well, Sean, it's being pointed out to me that Brian Kilmeade on Fox and Friends this morning in the 7 a.m. hour called on Tom Homan to be more involved. Perhaps a coincidence that this truth came out shortly thereafter, but perhaps not.
Or yeah, I mean, there's been reporting by conservative outlets that Kristi Noem tried to sideline him, that they wanted, certain spectacles in terms of chaos in certain places because they thought it would play well for the administration, and that Homan wanted to do a different approach. I mean, Sean, what can you tell?
Look, remember after the first shooting? Look, after the first shooting, remember it was Tom Homan that sort of initially pumped the brakes with respect to how to describe Renee Good. Tom Homan is a career law enforcement guy. He was a New York City beat cop first. He was a federal agent for years. Obama awarded him the highest civilian award in the country. This is a guy who has impeccable law enforcement credentials. Say what you will. Kristi Noem's never served a day in her life in terms of any kind of law enforcement, military. So I think
she's been a governor. She's been a governor of a state which has the National Guard.
Right. So, and again, but I don't remember any massive invasion of South Dakota. And I don't mean to say that lightly, but when you're in a crisis, you think about General Honore going down to New Orleans post Katrina. You need somebody of stature to go in. I think the president is rightly so recognizing. Look at the response from a lot of folks on the right to Kristi Noem's comments over the weekend. Right. With respect to concealed carry, Tom Homan is the right guy for this moment. And the president's recognizing this right now in terms of the cadre of who's available. I mean, my point is that for him to go in right now and say, here's why this is important. It's not so much the left, but if the president wants to find something on the right where he can take the temperature down, you are not going to ever question Tom Homan's bona fides. So for Tom to go in and say, Mr. President, here's what I recommend. If the president says Tom said X, who is anyone else to question that? I think this is the right move.
Well, and this goes to a huge problem the administration has this morning, which is a massive trust problem with the general public.
Yeah.
Kristi Noem lied, point blank. And so did several other administration officials early on who clearly wanted to get a narrative out that was advantageous to the administration, right? There is a reason you always hear people talk about the rapists, the murderers, and the drug dealers, not the gardeners, housekeepers, and waiters, right? They wanted to set the narrative of this like assassin, terrible person coming in to do harm to ICE.
We're gonna get
hold on a sec. That was a outright lie.
Yeah.
So the reason that matters is Trump is now putting a new public face in front of this, right? He is trying to move past this weekend. He's trying to get, which we're doing. We are talking about a new initiative, and as Sean said, the general public likes Homan. So you've lost the public on this issue, and now you're trying to regain some form of public trust.
Let's dig back into that all in a second. But first, I got to tell you about a package I received this
Oh my
weekend.
God. I'm so
Let's pull up element one. Let's pull up element one. I made this video myself, by the way, guys.
I mean, your unboxing video, this is great.
Yeah. For those of you who are listening, I'm opening a package of a massive bubble cuddle blanket from Cozy Earth and wrapping myself into it and cuddling with my toddler. And I put this up because, you know, Cozy Earth has been a sponsor of ours, and you two have been going on and on and on about how great they are. And this weekend, I received my first Cozy Earth products. I can attest that look at that.
Sean has more blankets. Yeah,
Wait,
look at
you
that.
have
Look at the
multiple?
packaging.
I have 2 houses. I need 2 blankets.
There you go.
Look at you. Look at you.
It's super soft.
Isn't that is the most relatable thing I've ever said.
Yeah.
It's super soft, super cozy and warm. And I got to say, it's so heavy that you can like kind of lift some weights with it. But that's good because that's what keeps you all bundled in. So everybody should go to CozyEarth.com, look at the bubble blankets. Valentine's Day is coming up, and you can use our code HUDDLE for up to 20% off on the bubble cuddle blanket. I will say I have sheets as well, and I haven't used them yet, but I'm planning to this week. I will come back with another report on that. And I have a candle. I got a candle from Cozy Earth. It smells so good.
Isn't this, honestly...
How does Skyla like
amazing.
the bubble blanket? I mean, let's be honest. She had popcorn there. Is Skyla a fan of the bubble blanket?
She was. I was almost like, I don't know that I want to let her use this because
That's your problem.
Hands and popcorn all over the place. But alas, I shared. So everybody go to CozyEarth.com. Use
We're having a seance here. All right.
For up to 20% off. One last housekeeping note before we jump back in. Guys, go to our YouTube page at the DC Huddle right now. Go and subscribe. It's free, as Sean always likes to say. It really helps us sort of build our numbers. The more numbers we have, the more we get in front of people. So help us out. Go to our YouTube page right now and subscribe, and make sure you're watching the show there, because that's what we want you to do. Okay, let's jump back into ICE. And obviously, you know, we've been talking about this morning. We were on News Nation as well. There's really no good way to sort of spin this. I mean, the administration is facing what can only be described fairly as sort of a disaster right now. Democrats sort of double seizing on this to say the administration is pushing operations that are leading to the deaths of Americans. You have Republicans who are really concerned about the political ramifications here and want to see investigations as well. And then the president in the middle sort of deciding, what is he going to do next? Is he going to pull out? Does he double down? What is he going to do? We're going to show, and I should warn people right now, this video is very graphic. So if you have little ones at home, please sort of turn the camera away if you don't want them to see this. We're going to show one of the videos of what happened in Minnesota with Alex Preddy getting shot. Let's pull that up.
So again, since we're just giving people, he's the guy with the camera. So This is him right here. That's him right there, motioning with his left hand. In his right hand, he has a camera in his hand, and he's motioning with his left hand. And this is where you can see him there. I think that is him. Yeah. So that is him. Yeah, that's him.
He's
right there. And then
And the one with the orange backpack, she's the protester that he ultimately is trying to help. You see the agent right there pushing her down.
Right.
He gets in the middle, tries to
Right.
help her up.
There you go.
And it's not him lunging at the agent by any means. The agent pulls him off, pushes
Right.
him to the ground, and this is what happens. All the agents piling on.
Well, and of course, as we're watching this, one of the challenges is that half the country was home all day, either in a storm or preparing for a storm.
Right.
And so,
They've seen
most
this.
every American saw this and other videos throughout the weekend. And that was the first, from a crisis standpoint for the administration, that if this happens during the week and people are at work and just glancing, but, you literally had half the country looking at their phones for a big part of Saturday.
So I just want to make the point here at the top that, when Renee Good was killed, all three of us came on this show and pushed back against certain Democrats saying this was, quote, murder. Certain people in the media saying this as well. I mean, like, clearly she was very much agitating. She had pulled her car in the middle of an operation. She was ignoring, an officer telling her to get out of the car. She accelerated, and there was real reason to see why he would fear for his life. This is a very different situation. Sean, just start with your own sort of take on this. Like what was your thought when you watched this video?
It's a great question, because I think when you watch it originally, and this is one of the things, Cheryl Atkinson, former CBS reporter, had a really great take about how people are looking at a video and then forming an immediate conclusion. And to your question, I think what I initially saw and then what came out over time is a little different, because you heard different narratives and then you stop and watch the video. So he's there, he's filming. He has a right to film. So he's sitting there in the street doing it. I think the question is going to be coming when he approached that person that ICE is pushing out of the way of an active operation, and he goes to them. No one knows who he is at that point, right? And so I get it. He's an ICU nurse. We didn't know that at the time. They didn't know that at the time. So what's happening? And if you're ICE, do you worry? What's this guy doing? Is he affiliated with her? What's happening? They start to tussle. Again, this is where what we know now versus what we saw at the beginning, we don't know. He had an absolute right to carry a weapon. If you're a conservative, a Second Amendment advocate, as I am, a concealed carry permit carrier, as I am, he had a right to do that. That is his constitutional right as an American, something that we on the right have been championed. He didn't brandish the weapon. He was permitted. He had it, from every account, had it where it was supposed to be. That was discovered. And look, I get if you're an agent and you're in the middle of a tussle and you're watching it, you're going, what's this guy doing? What's happening? But he had a right to have a weapon. He just didn't have a right to go and actively intervene in that law enforcement operation when that woman was being pushed aside. Him going to her, if you're an agent, you go, what the heck is going on? That's where I think a lot of the discussion is going to happen. What did they think was happening at that time? But then when they disarm the guy, that's the other issue. What was it that caused someone to fire? The one X factor that I think exists, the Sig Sauer has a sort of a history of being able to be discharged unintentionally. And so when they do the forensics on this, did that weapon, when it was removed from him, discharge? And therefore did another officer, because one agent takes it away and the other one fires, did that officer believe that the individual was firing versus an accidental discharge? The forensic will prove that or not. But this is where it gets really messy, because what caused you to fire upon him? That's still sort of elusive at this point.
Well, and I think that it's a really loaded word to say that a federal law enforcement or a state or local law enforcement official murdered somebody. But you have to look at this and just even back up to what Sean was saying, which is there's this intense, which I think totally inappropriate show of force. First, for the woman, for the protester, like they threw her down and started pepper spraying her. She was a protest. Like, what, to Sean's point, let's hear it from law enforcement. Why is it that they felt they needed to use force, that if a police officer in New York City did that to a protester would be under investigation without and better have good cause? Then you have the incident of the victim helping her up, and again they attack him. They then basically pin him to the ground, and as you say, they remove his gun. I don't know what else you call it. That they had him surrounded, helpless on the ground with no more weapon, and you elect to shoot him.
Well, but
but this is the thing. If this happened in any other city or any city in America by a police officer, we would all say there needs to be an investigation.
100%.
And the fact that initial response was, nope, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I think that getting back to the first thing we said, I think Trump's had enough. And he's like, Kristi Noem clearly doesn't. I mean, to come out and say that at the forefront undermines your credibility, right?
Well,
And what about Stephen? And what about Stephen Miller?
Let's bring some of that, because if the video wasn't bad enough, the administration's initial response was absolutely abysmal. Let's bring up, and it wasn't just Kristi Noem, by the way. Let's look at Stephen Miller right here, going to X to say this guy was a would-be assassin, and that Democrats were siding with a terrorist. You had the U.S.
Wait, hold on. Who tried to? He says in this tweet, for those who can't see it, he tried
to murder law enforcement.
He tried to murder law enforcement.
Yeah. You've got the U.S. attorney who was roasted on the right. You guys have hit on this by the NRA and Gun Owners of America for insisting that, quote, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there's a high likelihood you will be legally justified in being shot. There was Border Patrol chief going out there and saying that Freddie wanted to massacre agents.
Rachel, I just want to pause because it's not just the NRA. I mean, Dana Lash, a lot of folks on the right who have fought for concealed carry and for the Second Amendment are basically saying, time out. You're now trying to say, because of the situation, that all of the stuff that we've been fighting for to be able to carry concealed, because it not just the Second Amendment, but blah, 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 all of the statistics about making a safer environment. Suddenly now we're throwing that all under the bus. I mean, I'm sorry. That was a really mistimed statement. And
then Trump did it last night to the Wall Street Journal. He focused again on the fact that the guy should not have had a gun.
Well, there's two differences, Dan. One is we can all sit back and say, does it make sense to bring, whether you have
which is what I tweeted on Saturday. Yeah, look, totally agree.
As a responsible gun owner, I will tell you that there are times when do you have a right to do something and should you do something are not always the same. Yep. And so do I believe that going into a very heated situation with law enforcement carrying a weapon is always the smartest idea? Probably not. Do I think you have a right to do it? Absolutely. And those are not always the same thing. So I think how they address this going forward will matter, because it's not just the NRA. It's a lot of movement conservatives that are going to get pissed.
What I don't understand, Sean, is how an administration that is done really well in terms of like being organized, coordinating internally, how do they let something like Saturday in terms of their response happen? Like, you would have thought like right away when Stephen Miller sent that tweet, there would be like somebody pulling them all together saying, no, we can't, like, we got to not like respond like this. It just seemed like it dragged out for hours and hours. A ton of top officials just totally missing the mark on this.
Well, because there's two things that were happening. One, the president was at Mar-a-Lago, i.e. you have a disjointed communications network because you're not at the White House altogether. Number two is you're dealing with a major snowstorm. So you have literally the perfect storm, no pun intended, for a lack of a coordinated response. But this was, I mean, again, I think the idea of people going out and making these statements, and also the reality is that when you're the White House, you're relying on your subordinates, just the same in the military, your subordinate commands report up. So you're relying on them to give you accurate ground truth. And if they're basically saying, this is what happened, you're like, great. It's only until later. Remember, they put out the gun. Imagine you get a phone call and someone says, you're not going to believe what just happened. A guy came at us with a gun in the middle of Minneapolis. He had multiple magazines. And you go, well, are you kidding me? And they go, yeah, we took him down. Don't worry. Oh, good call. And then suddenly 20 minutes later, you watch the video and you go, wait a second, that's not what happened. So I think and this is why I was saying, I don't think that Kristi Noem has really done some serious brand damage, because when that gets pushed up, the people above have to believe and have credibility in the facts that they're getting, and they didn't.
Do you think she gets pushed out over this, Sean?
Well, I don't know if she gets pushed out, but Tom Homan is going to be in charge. I mean, that they're making that point right now.
Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, I have a different take on this, which is that, and I think this is where the left's intensity is now amping up to 11, and Obama and Clinton's statements reference this. I think the problem for the administration is this is the playbook they have used for the last 6 months, which is to jump out and say it's terrorists, it's crazies, it's murderers. And on the left, and I've talked about this increasingly, I have heard from people for the last 6 months about ICE throwing people to the ground, smashing heads into the pavement, basically beating people up, not murder, but beating the crap out of protesters. And I was like, no, I don't like that. That doesn't sound right. I can't believe that's true. The problem is Saturday morning, to Sean's point, I saw the New York Post headline, which was a picture of the gun and he shot it. Do you know that my in-laws Slack channel had the video already? So at the same time, I'm getting the video and the Post leak. The administration knew the video was out there. The problem is there were more videos, and this is their problem. You can only BS if there isn't a counter set of facts and proof. And they've been caught now multiple times lying. So the problem is it's kind of like Hurricane Katrina, the Iraq War. Once it's established that you lie repeatedly, the public stops trusting you. And forget Democrats. It's the middle, right? And so for everyone in MAGA who always screams like, who cares? You're not a big enough coalition to win elections. Like newsflash, you need the middle, just like we do.
Well,
and you've lost the middle.
we need to move to shutdown. We need to move to shutdown.
I was just real quick though, Rachel, to Dan's point, if you're on the right now and you're saying, I disagree with you, guess what? I'm going to give you a political news flash. You'll lose the midterms and the president's going to be screwed. If you support President Trump, his agenda, you better want a solid solution to the situation. Because right now, if we don't wake up and realize what's happening, we will lose both houses and the president will be impeached and the agenda will stop. So as somebody who wants this agenda to move forward, who wants to support the president's policies, I want this to end in a good place. I want him to keep enforcing the border. I want him to go after bad guys. But if we don't take our head out of the sand, we will lose.
Just a very quick question before we move on. Does he pull, some of the ICE officials out of Minnesota by the end of the week? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's look at Shutdown 2.0, our next topic, because it does appear we are sort of barreling toward another partial government shutdown on Friday. Reminder, guys, that the House passed the remainder of their funding bills last week before they left town. The Senate was expected to clear them this week. But now, of course, because of what happened to Preddy, Dems are drawing a line on this and saying they will not vote for DHS funding. Dan, what do you think it is that Democrats want here? Is it the political point, or do they actually want some sort of solution, whether it's decreased funding, commitment to an investigation, and process changes?
Yeah. So look, I actually think at first they didn't know what they wanted, meaning like within the first few hours. I think anger was so great. I think where they're going to ultimately have to settle. And look, there's a part of our base that won't settle for anything. I mean, they truly, Mandani coming out saying abolish ICE, AOC, like that crew is not going to ever agree to anything. I think what you're going to get that Republicans could agree to is some sort of increased training and oversight that is going to report to Congress, which, by the way, should be happening as an, standard operating procedure, but is basically stopped under this administration. And so I think it will be some sort of process set of changes. And I think the question is there funding? Because this bill increases ICE funding, or does it just stay, where it is? And it's probably the latter.
Here's the thing, though. It's hard for me to see the president agreeing to something like that. I mean, if you think about Trump's first term, he sort of famously stonewalled 24 investigations into the administration, probably more. Is he going to want to give oversight to Congress, give them, potential fodder to come after him? Sean, what do you think he would actually agree to sort of either reopen the government or stop a shutdown?
What I think the president should do is tell Tom Homan that he's going to sit down today with Governor Walz and Mayor Fry and say, here's the deal. You guys want ICE out? I want access to your jails. You are the reason. Part of the reason that this is happening is because you are a sanctuary city. All of these cities in red states, Florida, Texas, etc., don't have this situation because they cooperate with law enforcement. They are not sanctuary cities. So I think that they need to make a deal and say, you say that you want this, because Fry and Waltz claim that they support that. So but they won't let them into the jails. So let us into your jails. Let us go after the bad guys, and we will take down the number of ICE agents here. That's the deal. But that's the thing that's interesting. The deal right now is with Minnesota, and Chuck Schumer can't get in the way of that. That's the beautiful thing about what the White House can do right now, is you can control the confines of the deal, right? And so I would figure out a way to give Waltz and Fry a little bit of, hey, they're going to take the number of ICE agents down, but we are going to allow them to make sure that we focus entirely on the bad guys. So that's number one. Number two, I think what's got to be, remember, we are dealing in the midst of a snowstorm that's affecting millions of people that have already declared emergencies in 10 states. So you have FEMA tied into DHS. If you pull this out, you have a major problem with claiming that FEMA was a problem. So tell me how your governors are going to react. Number two, I said this last week, it cannot be underscored. The Senate Republicans failed the American people. Okay. I cannot underscore that. They had a chance to do their job on Friday. All of this would be avoidable, but they chose to bail and fail on doing their jobs. We would not be here if they had actually just voted and then left town, but they wanted to get home to watch the game or whatever it was. They had a job to do and they failed on it. And that cannot be missed in this discussion. And then the last thing I'll say is this: Democrats have to be careful, because what is it? Dan alluded to this. What is it that you want? Because they're not in agreement right now. And so some of them want to defund ICE, some of them want oversight, whatever. But if you can't articulate with one voice what you want, and something happens, because this is the last point I'll make. It seems to me, as someone on the right, that the Dems have plenty to say when somebody who interferes with law enforcement or is in this country illegally dies. But when someone who is in this country illegally kills a U.S. citizen, there's absolute silence. Some lives matter to them, some lives don't. And if they defund ICE, hold on, let me finish. If they defund ICE and another American dies, that's on them.
Well, here's the thing. They already funded ICE.
That's utterly ridiculous.
Earlier this year. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Wait. It's ridiculous. But I think that ICE and then someone dies, that's on you.
Sean, stop. A bunch of Dems voted for the Lake and Riley Act. Like, just stop.
A bunch.
So here's the issue. I think the problem for Republicans is it's not just Minnesota and the Senate. There are a bunch of Senate Republicans who know it. Almost every state, or a lot of states, there are examples of ICE's brutality and out of control. So the problem is, for Republicans, we have the public on our side, and there are more and more videos of inappropriate behavior. So I think where this lands is ICE is going to, the way ICE trains and the way ICE is dealt with is going to end up changing. Here's the thing. If we shut the government down over those videos, we will win. We'll win.
Okay.
I mean, John,
in the short term, you might claim a short-term political victory, but I swear to everything that is good and holy, the second another Americans die, you shut the government down because of that, they will pin every future death.
I don't know where that's going. No one's talking about it. But like, okay, it's like the red herring out there. But I think for the first time since probably the mid 2010s. Immigration is now a winner for Democrats. And I didn't think I'd say that anytime in the near future.
Once upon a time, it would have been a dream for Republicans, for Democrats to shut the government down over defunding ICE.
It's not defunding.
Wow. The world
is not
totally
defunding.
How can you say it's not defunding when they literally say we wanted to fund ICE?
No, because I literally just said the base. Look, we have our crazy base, but that is not what you're hearing out of the leadership. Not yet. If they change their mind, we'll see.
How long will a shutdown last, Dan?
A couple days. Trump knows it's a loser.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think you forget everything that's wrapped up in DHS. You got TSA, FEMA, Border Patrol. I mean, you want to shut down government? Again, we've talked about this for the last 2 weeks. Once one side thinks they have the advantage, they overplay their hand, something else happens and it flips. Democrats shut down government at their own peril.
Let's move on to our third topic. the vice president taking incoming. So absent what happened in Minnesota this weekend, Vance had a very interesting weekend before that. First, he got into a tiff with MAGA influencer Laura Loomer after she criticized Republicans on Friday for focusing too much on abortion. He then went after her, saying that the president himself encouraged him to, address the March for Life, which was Friday. And then she goes back after him. So it's, kind of unprecedented fight there. And then we also saw a story from Axios that Ted Cruz, who's obviously looking at a potential 2028 run against Vance, has been trash talking the vice president in private donor meetings. And then, of course, there's all the Minnesota of this, right? Vance had gone to Minnesota to try to decrease temperatures, bring the temperature down. And instead, this happens this weekend. Not to say that he's the blame, but by any means, but like clearly some blowback in that regard from Democrats who are looking what he said this weekend about Minnesota and saying he's way off the mark. Sean, like, I'm trying to think, where should we even start with like the Cruz of it, the Loomer of it? It feels like with the Loomer issue, this is just another example of Republicans wanting to criticize the president, but feeling like they cannot do that. So they look for someone else to go after. And that would be JD Vance, somebody who's safer to put their aim at. Is that fair?
No, because I feel like both of these through lines, like Laura Loomer is unquestionably influential. Like that's not debatable. Like we've
100%.
Right. I mean, we've seen what she's been able to do with respect to personnel. But on this issue, I'm sorry, like, there is no way, I've said this before when we talked about the Hyde Amendment, there is no Republican that will ever be elected to a very high office trashing the pro-life movement. That's just a non-starter, okay? JD speaks from, he gave probably one of the best impassioned speeches about life that I've heard a politician give from the heart, unbelievably authentic at the March for Life. So she is this issue, with all due respect, she is wrong on. This is a winner every day of the week for anyone who wants to be the Republican nominee or govern, to be on the side of life. It's politically, it's smart. And I think the way that JD articulated it was brilliant. So this one is a manufactured issue by folks in the media. It just truly is. And on the Cruz issue, here's the thing. I read the story. There's no audio that's been put out, by the way. Right. This was a story in Axios where the reporter claimed to have heard it. I read it twice because I was like, what am I missing in the headline? Cruz, it sounded to me like he said, hey, I had a phone call with the president. I explained to him why I didn't like the tariff stuff and the blah, blah, blah. I explained the political consequences. The president told me I was wrong, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't. Again, I think that to some degree that there's a bit of manufactured outrage in this that may not be there. I haven't heard anybody else on the right at all bring this up.
Well, I mean, look, I think that the challenge for Vance here is, and we've always talked about this, that the race for 2028 and for Vance wants to hold everyone together. And we know Trump is a phenomenal political athlete, and he was able to hold and attract new people into his coalition through kind of charm and threats and, kind of all the things you do when you're trying to put a big tent together to win the presidency. We don't know if JD Vance has that skill set. And to me, what's kind of interesting is, look, Sean, you said the media with Loomer, like Loomer did it herself out in the open. So now you have,
that was pretty striking for her to go directly after the vice president.
Right. And in a general election, and we always say this, you can't win the general without winning the primary. Vance does not want to be kind of leading with abortion, right? You want to say I'm pro-life so that the community and your base hears it, but you don't want it front and center. So anytime Loomer or anyone else is attacking you from within your party and you're having to kind of say, no, being pro-life is really good and I'm really proud, out in the open is not good.
I don't agree with that, Dan. I just don't. That's okay. The idea. First of all, like the way that JD speaks about this is so much different, and I just disagree with you.
But the idea you would agree that Trump tried to downplay abortion in 24.
Yes,
he did. And right. Okay. But he's a smart politician.
You don't want to check. I mean,
okay. I mean, look, we may disagree on this, but the second part is with Cruz. And this is what I love.
Can I just say something about the Loomer abortion thing real quick? Because, I mean, I can say, I have heard from people very close to the president who do not want abortion to be a big part of the midterm dynamic and discussion, right? Like when
Or
Josh
48.
Hawley, came out a few weeks ago and said that he was going to do, all these pro-life, this sort of pro-life super PAC thing. Like there was a concerted effort to send a message to him to say back off. However, that's different than, the March for Life. This is something that they do every year. Of course, the administration is going to be part of it. And so Loomer clearly started this and made it a bigger thing by going out there and accusing Republicans who take part in it, which obviously they firmly are pro-life, so that this is their belief system, of accusing them of making it a huge midterm election. So to me,
that's right. It was not going to be, there's no signature piece of legislation in which that was going to happen. It was the March for Life. What did you think he was going to do? Talk about NASCAR?
Right. Guys, but the only thing is there's a reason historically that Republican presidents and vice presidents did not speak at the Right to Life. They sent videos. Why? Sean, you know this. They did not want to be seen up there at the march and have TV commercials put out. Again, we can disagree, but there is a reason Trump was the first. The second thing that I want to talk about with Cruz quickly is because this is for us on the Democratic side. One of the allegations of Vance is that he is a phony. And Cruz hit at this idea that he's a pawn of Tucker Carlson, or at least the report alleged in this recording that he says repeatedly that he's a pawn of Tucker Carlson.
This is the quote, Dan. He says Tucker created JD. JD is Tucker's protege, and they are one in the same. Go ahead.
Right. So, I think you're going to hear Democrats say that he's a pawn of Elon Musk. So if the right, Sean, you always talk about this. You don't want red on red. We don't like blue on blue. If JD Vance starts facing heat from Josh Hawley and heat from Ted Cruz, it's a tough spot. And at the same time with the immigration stuff, Vance owns it because he's the number 2 in the administration. We're going to see JD Vance's political skills a little bit here.
See, here's what I think. This to me is like the economy in a sense. Right now it's baked. So the economy is going to be what it is in Q2, Q3, and Republicans will either benefit from it or not. If you're JD Vance, you own Donald Trump's legacy, right? So either you benefit from it or you don't. But he right now hugely benefits from it. So going into 2028, JD Vance being the right-hand guy of Donald Trump is a huge benefit. Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, everybody recognizes that. I think they're drafting, to continue my NASCAR analogy here, and they're hoping that somehow he doesn't run or he falls or whatever. But at the end of the day, right now, unless something goes wrong, JD Vance is in pole position and will win the race.
He'll win the primary.
Yeah.
But But the interesting thing is how that primary may change if the Trump brand in the general is bad.
Right. But that's why I'm saying that whether you're Cruz or Hawley or whomever, at the end of the day right now, JD Vance benefits or to your point, if everything were to go to hell in a handbasket, yeah, he owns everything. So he's hitched his wagon to Trump. And so but right now, I don't see the benefit in going after him. Like,
Sean, let me ask you something though. And Rachel, we would all agree Trump is feared, right? Like within the Republican Party. And I say this with admiration. He is feared if you cross him. Does anybody fear JD Vance?
I don't think he's got it's different.
That's the thing I want to see from Vance. Does he have the skill to inherit the fear that people have with Trump? Because so far what I see is, and Loomer reflected that, there is no fear of publicly going at JD. Yeah. None. That's a problem.
Okay, let's move to our final segment, Media Monday. Sean, I'll start with you on this because I know.
Wait. You just glossed over the fact.
I'm sorry. I totally forgot a whole segment, didn't I?
Yeah, you just spoke to the president.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing, though. When I first did my outline for the show, I had accidentally put China, Canada first and then Vance. And so I skipped it to go straight to Vance. And that's what happened here. So, yes, I may have called the president on Saturday morning and had a brief conversation with him. There was this big threat by the president on Truth Social Saturday morning. He said he was going to slap tariffs, 100% tariffs on Canada, our one of top trade partners to the north. And I saw that and I saw him tweeting about it and sort of going after Canada's prime minister. So I just sort of picked up my phone, called him and asked him about it. I said, do you see a trade deal between Canada and China as a big national security threat? Obviously, that's what he's upset about, Canada and China making this deal. And he told me it's not going to be a threat because I'm not going to let it happen. So there you go. Literally right after I get off the phone with him and start typing this up and writing something up, the Minnesota shooting breaks. So very quickly the story moves on.
Well, and you said you thought this was that you didn't think he was in the best mood, and I think we now suspect that he might have known about this.
He wasn't chatty, Dan.
Yeah,
usually he can be with reporters, especially, and he was clearly like intent, like I got to run, sort of thing. So sort of didn't strike me as, I don't know, nothing out of the ordinary, but yeah. And then just a little bit later, this shooting breaks. So I imagine he was sort of getting briefed about all of that while I phoned him. So, I mean, the question though is, was he serious about this tariff threat on Canada? Like that could obviously impact Americans. There's huge concerns about prices in the midterm elections. Like, Sean, do you think he ends up putting 100% tariff on Canada, or is this just a bid to sort of, put him in a certain position ahead of renegotiating USMCA?
Well, Carney has subsequently put out, I don't know if it was a statement or did an interview, Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, very clearly sort of saying, we're not getting in bed with China in terms of a massive trade deal. Whether that's enough to assuage him, I don't know. But I will say that I showed you guys the front page of the Wall Street Journal the other day, big picture of, still have it. I mean, this is the front page, Carney and Xi standing there, and it says Canada warms to China. So I think that the president's clearly concerned about China going into Canada and the effect that would have on everything. But Carney is clearly backing off. Whether that's enough, we'll see. But I do think it'll de-escalate quick. Yes.
Dan,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because and I think the thing for Trump is he's had a bad few days. Like going into before Saturday morning, I think he was enraged that the rest of the world Friday night and Saturday morning was talking about how Europe and the world kind of stood up to Trump with Carney's speech in Davos as the kind of capstone, and won. That Trump backed down on Greenland, that they showed that, the best way to deal with a bully is to confront with force, to threaten equally. And I think, for the Trump brand, he can't have that. So do I think Canada and China are going to back off? I don't. I think it's like, people talk about raising taxes in New York. Well, fine, we'll go to Florida then. I think the problem that Trump is beginning to find is China's walking around the world saying, come do business with us. And I know that not everyone's going to, because of the risks that you have with China. But I think between what happened with Greenland and Canada and then the Minnesota stuff, look, I say Trump's a good political athlete. He cannot this morning be sitting there thinking everything is going well. He's had a really bad month of January, which is remarkable. He knows he's got to turn this around. I believe.
Let's change the focus a bit because we're running out of time. Media Monday, Sean, you had some thoughts.
Well, I think watching the hosts of the Sunday shows, I know it's hard to continue to get outraged, but the tone and tenor they took on Republicans versus Democrats, again, there's rarely any follow-up on these guys. They talk about closing the government. As I just said, if you're going to talk about defunding ICE, I mean, Dan gave a spirited defense of Democrats. Why can't they give the same? I mean, I was watching some of these folks and they would say things about ICE. We need to do this and that. Those are real consequences, right? I mean, you want to shut down the government. What is it that you want in return? There was no pushback by any of these hosts on their Democratic guests in terms of what they wanted, how they would achieve their goals. And I think that it's just so irresponsible of them. Whereas with Republican guests, it was over and over again, do you believe this? Will you denounce that? I think that there's a massive disservice being done to the American people. And there's a real interesting ruling that didn't get a lot of attention. The FCC the other day came out with this ruling that said there's always been this equal time provision. And now they're extending it out to all the networks. So it's just ABC, NBC, and CBS who broadcast on the public airwaves. that there has to be equal time. And I hope Republicans take advantage of this, because this is something that has gone on too long, is that we've just accepted on the Republican side, oh, well, all of these shows are very leftist and we'll just let it go. I think we've got to now start pushing back and saying, these are public airways. The law says the following, and we can't just be complicit in allowing the left to bulldoze us on this.
Dan, any things jump out to you this weekend on media? I know it was a busy weekend, so it's like.
No, I mean, I think it's just, as my first reaction Saturday morning was just, it's sad, kind of the madness everywhere. And I think, Sean talks about the left, like on the right, so much of the media just takes what the administration says and just runs with it, even though there's literally videos that start to counteract it. And I think, painting the protesters as all like George Soros funded lunatics, which is just not true. I mean, there may be some funded protesters, but a lot of these people are just people. They're angry, right? Now you can say, like, I disagree with them, but I just think so much of the media right now is so tribal that it is so hard to break through and figure out, like, what is a reasonable set of facts. And most people will tell you it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I was, I was going to a lot of sort of conservative publication websites on Saturday night to sort of get the sense of, like, is there any, what are Republicans saying? What are they saying? What are conservatives sort of feeling? And like, there wasn't a lot of pushback on that, on Saturday night. And it was mostly like the lawmakers, governors, the NRA, statement, people on Twitter who were really starting to sort of gen this up and began this sort of criticism of the administration. We saw that sort of happen on Twitter there. But anyway, let's take some questions, unless Sean, you had anything else you want to?
No. And apparently some news is breaking. Katie, do you want to bring this up here? Because Katie just texted us about. Yeah, I don't know what this leak signal. Okay, I was hoping maybe there was more information. I don't know, because we've been on air here, and I try to focus on you all, not the news. I don't know what this is in reference to. So,
I'm not sure that I do either. I will say, like, some of the coverage this weekend that, again, to get back to media, like conservative media has covered some of the protests on the ground, like finding and following people that they think are related to or connected to ICE in some way. Like, that stuff is crazy. Like, I was watching some of that online as well this weekend, and it's scary. Like, going after people that, well, number one, you shouldn't go after anybody just because they have ICE connections, but people who didn't have ICE connections.
So let me just say two things in reverse order. When it comes to credibility, I get Dan's point, because I just said that, like, I think the way that DHS Secretary Noem has come out is just not been helpful to the cause. But for folks in the media to talk about credibility is a bit rich. I mean, between all of the stuff that they have doxed Republicans with over the last several years, to suddenly talk about credibility, to watch some of these hosts act like somehow they weren't complicit in lying and spreading misinformation and doxing us and gaslighting us for years, is a bit rich. So I get that. On the issue of the Signal chat, this is what I'm picking up. The Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan, is one of the administrators of the Signal chat for violent protest. This means the governor's, I'm reading one of the.
Yeah.
This means the governor's office is in charge of the insurrection against the federal government. So I'm going through a bunch of these tweets. There's another.
And for those who don't know, the lieutenant governor is running for the U.S. Senate. I mean, she is running against what's her name, the congresswoman in the Democratic primary.
Yeah. She's the progressive candidate.
So they're going through this Signal chat. There's a guy who has been exposing it over and over again, and they're now identifying a lot of these people. There's someone who is in the Department of Education in Minnesota. So all of these people.
But what's the allegation that
there's a coordination from the Minnesota government coordinating the protests? And it's kind of like to your point about the funding of it. So you watch some of these boxes show up in Minnesota with all sorts of very nice little accoutrement to go protest, signs and whistles and all this. And someone's like, who's paying for it all? Now you're seeing the Minnesota government officials in the Signal chat helping to coordinate it. Again, you start to go, who's calling the shots here?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would want to hear more because I think Republicans will, and then we're now being told that this is not confirmed. I think Republicans make just as Democrats attempted during the Tea Party and some of the Trump stuff early on in 15 and 16, saying that it's manufactured, it's fake, it's Koch brothers backed. There is general public outrage over ICE. You can disagree with what they're advocating for, but if Republicans attempt to say this is all a small cabal of funded leftists, you will lose more elections because you are telling regular Americans no.
But let me ask you this. Fair enough. But here's my question to you, Dan. I don't doubt that there are people that are out there, but the question is, isn't it valid to look at, is there a left-wing organization funding all this? Is the Soros organization or affiliates? I don't know how that's not a fair question to ask.
Well, look, I mean, look, to me, there's like three different things. Go back to the person who was shot. He just a VA nurse who was there. He was not part of, to our knowledge and his family's knowledge, he was not part of a cabal of paid protesters. So is there some sort of collective, effort to protest ICE? Oh, I'm sure there is. And I wouldn't be surprised if the political parties. Are there efforts to promote the administration and their point of view on the outside that are paid people? You bet there are. Sean, you and I both know this.
I was going to say, Sean, if this ends up being true, that she's on this signal chain and that, the signal chain is like, coordination of these efforts, like, does that in any way change what you think the president would do in terms of pulling out of
well, no, Minnesota? There's still a political reality, but I think that, and again, to Dan's point, I mean, there's like multiple things can be true at the same time. Like people can be pissed off and outraged, but I think it is worth looking at. Again, Nick Shirley goes and identifies massive amounts of fraud, and the governor, everyone calls him a right-wing YouTuber. We point out the fact that there's potential left-wing organizations funding this, and it's don't look at this. And I think, again, you can't. I just find it interesting how, again, I go back to the point for decades now. The media and the left has told the American people there's nothing to see here. And suddenly now they want to be the arbiters of the same kind of information, right? They said that Nick Shirley, we shouldn't go after fraud. No organization outside of News Nation, by the way, sent a crew to cover. And I know Dan pointed out that, yes, the New York Times had a story on it, and that was it. And then we left. We still haven't even continued to talk about the rest of the fraud that might be permeating other programs throughout the government because we wanted to move on from that. I mean,
hold on a sec. That the irony of that is that's what started this.
Yes.
ICE, right. To my knowledge, Sean, in the history of the Republic, ICE doesn't do fraud investigations.
No. But if it's perpetrated upon people in the country illegally.
No, I know, but that's
there's a video that I was watching this weekend. There's Somali people taking like literally suitcases of cash out. And again, no one seems to give a crap.
Well, look, as I've always said, investigate fraud, and it should be a bipartisan thing. Because you and I both know places like the Department of Defense or War, there's a whole lot of fraud that goes on there.
Let's take another question. We're running out of time here. Okay. Oh, another question? Do we have another question? Okay. Is Trump going to veto these insane spending bills that fund much of what he has cut?
Not a chance.
Not at this point.
He doesn't believe in debt and deficit whatsoever.
Oh, I don't know that that's true, but I don't think that's the priority right now. I think they tried to go through with it, but you can't do this at the 11th hour after you get the appropriations. I mean, like that, the ship has sailed on this stuff right now.
I will also just say, and this will really set the right off, go look at how many earmarks are in this budget bill. Bipartisan.
Lots.
Thousands. They're back, baby. Earmarks are back.
Yes, they are. Okay, let's take another question.
It's technically called member-directed funding.
Yes.
Whatever makes you sleep at night and lets you bring the bacon home.
When are they going to replace Noam? She seems to be incapable of planning operations and providing logistical support to her people on the ground. If there's this much chaos right now, the World Cup is coming, and she seems an incompetent DHS pick for something so important. Look, Sean, you can speak better to this than I can, but my perception of Trump is when he has problems, somebody becomes the fall guy or woman that he is upset with, right? The president
he also
is
doesn't
not
like to fire people.
Yes, Trump is not being served well is usually what the narrative turns into. It seems like I can't imagine they would give a scalp to the left, but marginalizing, sidelining, and maybe she decides to, on a Friday night, announce this summer she's leaving or something of that nature. Can't be now.
Yeah, I think to your point though, this is where you make it untenable and you put Tom Homan in charge of everything.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is where we'll see how this thing plays out. But as I said early on, the president's push for Homan to go out there and the way that he phrased it, he hasn't been involved in this so far, was to basically present him as he's got clean hands. He can come in and do this. This hasn't been on him. And it was almost like like the ability for him to go in and negotiate in a way that the DHS hasn't. So we'll see how this plays out in the next 48 hours. I think if Homan gets a good deal, like if he impresses everybody out there, I wouldn't be surprised to see a continuation of the sidelining.
And let's remember too that, or keep in mind that some people in the administration have been looking at Noam and saying, okay, she's got ambitions, presidential ambitions someday.
Yeah.
Like at some point, what's good for her, what she sees as good for her, may not be in the best interest of the administration. I mean, those conversations have been going on now for a couple months as she sort of made herself the face of, this TV ad campaign touting what DHS has done. So that was before all of this.
One of her senior staffers is not, or what, advisors.
Corey Lewandowski, yes.
I wasn't going to use
one of her
name.
closest senior staffers is hated
Loved by everybody. Yes. So, wait, guys.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have today.
Hold on.
Sean, what are you flagging for
Hold
tonight?
on, Dan.
Wait, just quickly. Is Kristi Noem DHS Secretary by the State of the Union?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. That's
if they're going to get rid of her, you would think they would do like the soft off ramp.
Well, that's the thing. That I'm not saying that's like a public, firing, but like, does she announce that she needs to spend more time with her family, or something's come up, or just curious?
Real quick though, we did have one more super chat that I wanted to just touch on.
Oh, yes.
There were not protesters. They were actively interfering with law enforcement doing their job. Also, when you're going through concealed carry class, it was emphasized that if you carry, you have an extra burden not to put yourself in situations that could result in escalation. That's true on all fronts. Look, this is what the investigation will bear out. You have a right to protest. If you start to interfere in that protest, this is where you're going to put yourself in danger. Again, no one should die. I don't in any way. I'm a pro-life guy for that. So I don't want anyone to lose their life. But I also think that, like, don't be stupid. Don't go in the middle of a situation. It's like going out after midnight. They always say nothing good happens after midnight. Well, it doesn't mean you can't go. It just means it may not be the smartest idea. I think that's true. And also to the point here, if you're carrying, you've got to be cognizant of that. Doesn't mean you don't have a right to go somewhere, a right to protest, but just understand the extra burden when you do. I think absolutely great question there.
I mean, look, I just go to this, this has taken hold on the right. To my knowledge of what I've seen on videos, both he and the woman were not interfering with law enforcement.
I have had that question.
I mean, guys,
holding a camera. He was holding a camera, and then
right.
The ICE agent pushed her.
But remember, the question is, what was she doing? Because that's what precipitated it, right? Then he goes to her, so that becomes the situation.
I just think, look, it should be investigated. Perhaps additional facts will come up because, by the way, one of the facts that everyone's dying to see is the victim had his cell phone initially rolling, talking to ICE. So presumably AT&T, somebody has that. Mm-hmm. So I would love to hear what that conversation was, and I think everybody would. But folks, it certainly appears that they were not interfering. And this is one of ICE's problems, is they are starting to get very, very physical with protesters. Local police cannot behave that way.
Well,
you
and,
can't.
you know, one of the other points, and Dan, you touched on this, and it's in the chat, which is like when you see a video, even that video, right? To your point about the voice part, we only see part of this. So what
Yep.
happened before? Like, there's a lot of stuff when we see a video, and this
Yep.
is again goes back to DHS. Slow your roll because we haven't seen the context. It could benefit DHS and the ICE agent. It could benefit the individuals. But like this idea that we see a 10-second video and we say that's what happened. There's something that could have precipitated this. There could be something that benefits this, you know, Alex. Like, so I just it's like we all want to jump and say X.
Flagging anything, Sean, for tonight?
Well, you talk about this discussion tonight on the show. Two people. One, Betsy Bratner Smith. She's a retired Chicago police sergeant, but she is a trainer of law enforcement, the spokesman for the National Police Association. We're going to break down this. What should police do? How, I mean, like from the angle that we just did, we're going to take this conversation and go from there. And then we're going to talk the politics and polling of it with the president's pollster, Jim McLaughlin. What does all this mean? So we'll look at it from both angles, the policy part of it, the actions, and then the politics of it tonight at 6.
I wonder, they had to have done polling on this. Well, maybe not this
yet.
weekend,
No,
but,
not yet.
But over the past few weeks, I would think. Good get on McLaughlin for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, we will be back tomorrow at 8:30. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Stay cuddled up. If you're cold, wrap yourself in a cozy earth bubble blanket.